Welcome back to Inside Tennessee. John North, my colleague. Another question for Jeff Lyash, the president and CEO of TVA.
We mentioned we were going to talk a little about coal and the legacy of coal. Obviously, TVA is concentrating on shutting down or easing reliance on the coal plants, and obviously there's a legacy of the coal ash. But I want to ask you a couple things about that. One, is Bull Run still planned to be, is it closing at the end of this year?
It will. We will retire Bull Run at the end of the year. It's done its job. It's lived its life. We're going to operate that through to the end of the year, and then that will retire. And we're looking at how to repurpose that site, and we have some thoughts there.
And following up on that, one of the questions which I think was going to come after you all sort of decided what to do with the plant was sort of the piles of coal ash that were left. Do we know what's going to happen with that? Because obviously, as you know, environmental critics continue to raise questions about that and the long-term and even the short-term exposure that exists there.
Yeah, I would just tell you, TVA is committed to handle coal ash safely and in absolutely an industry standard setting manner. And we do that. TVA is looked to as one of the examples of how to responsibly manage coal combustion residuals, coal ash. Today, 80% of the coal ash that we produce is beneficially reused. And so it goes into cinder blocks, for example, and cement. And so we minimize what we have to dispose of. And when we dispose of it, we are very careful to do environmental studies, geotechnical analysis, and to site those disposal facilities so they meet the highest level of safety. And you know, interestingly, at our Shawnee plant in Kentucky, we're piloting a process to close the coal ash facilities there by putting solar on top of them with a unique, first-of-a-kind closure and solar integrated system. We're going to cover 300 acres with this, and it's the prototype. And if that's successful, and I think it will be, we'll replicate that across our system. So we'll not only close them safely, we'll get some power out of the real estate that has no better purpose.
Long before your tenure, we did see that Kingston coal ash spill, and that concern was raised in other places about what's in the ground already and the groundwater exposure to what is toxic coal ash. What are your guarantees to people who live in those communities?
Yeah, we understand each impoundment. They're stable. We do extensive groundwater monitoring. We have real-time groundwater monitoring on those facilities that's state-of-the-art so that we understand it. And when we close one of those, we do it in a way where citizens should not worry about whether those impoundments will ever fail. They won't. And whether you'll ever see groundwater intrusion because they're designed to avoid that, and we maintain the monitoring to verify that.
Your message to people who often hear from elected leaders, including presidents, that TVA should be broken up. It's a quasi-public agency and perhaps it's outlived its usage. Your message to people who suggest that idea.
I've worked in the power business for 40 years, investor-owned utilities as well as this public power model. I would tell you TVA is unique, and it is a strategic advantage for the Tennessee Valley. TVA takes no appropriations, not since 1959. We fund everything we do, economic development, the environment, and energy, from your electric system bill. And we do it at a cost lower than 80% of the utilities in the country, at a reliability that is higher than almost every utility in the country, and at a carbon intensity that is lower than, again, almost every utility in the country. So you're getting an extremely competitive product. You're getting it from a company that doesn't worry about the quarter's earnings or the shareholder. I wake up every morning worried about 10 million people in the Valley and how best to serve them. And we do this in partnership with local power companies like KUB here in Knoxville. This lets us leverage the scale of TVA with local control that understands you as a customer. It is a powerful model, and I think with the challenges we're facing over the next 20 years, it is a strategic advantage for this part of the country. And so my own view is it would be a tragedy to lose this because it can't be recreated.
You mentioned how big Tennessee is in the Tennessee Valley Authority. It's the first word of the three-word title, and it is extremely important to the state, the utility is. Just kind of curious if you could clarify, we know TVA is leasing out and may sell someday that East Tower and is now just occupying the West Tower in downtown Knoxville. And then also, I think I've seen some reports that you all may be changing or sort of consolidating space in downtown Chattanooga. Of course, you have that beautiful building downtown. Can you just clarify what the big plans are for TVA in terms of its presence in those two cities?
Yeah, we're committed to Knoxville. You know, we have those two towers, and we really didn't need all that floor space. You can appreciate this. Times have changed, and so technology's changed. And so we were just so pleased to be able to partner with Randy Boyd and University of Tennessee and the school system to make great use of one of the two towers. We're doing renovations in the second tower, and we plan to stay there. So no plans to move from there. You mentioned Chattanooga. There again, we have dated buildings on a very large floor, over 8 acres in the middle of Chattanooga.
It is big.
We're working with the city to site a potential federal courthouse on that property to help redevelop that section of downtown because we think there's a better use for that property. But even so, we'll maintain a Chattanooga headquarters in the core of downtown Chattanooga because we think these commitments are important.
Jeff Lyash, we appreciate the conversation and the education this morning.
Thank you, gentlemen. Absolutely. I'm glad to be here.
We look forward to having you back, and we'll be back on Inside Tennessee with some perspective on that ongoing election right after this.